Bright Duty. Every student matters.
Now, pipelines is a newly added mode of transportation. Okay, it was not there before, like roadways, railways, but it has been added recently. Now, pipelines were used in the past to transport water to various places. Pipes were used only to transport water, okay, liquid substance. But today it's used to transport crude oil or petroleum and natural gas from oil and natural gas fields where they are obtained to refineries, fertilizer factories, and big thermal power plants. So there are the areas where petroleum, natural gas, and oil they are obtained. They need to be sent to the industries to get them refined and then to be sent to the market for selling them. Now they cannot be transported in vehicles, in trucks, in buses, but they can only be transported through pipelines. Okay. So let's look at some of the advantages of pipelines. Pipelines can be laid underwater and also over mountains and under varied terrain. So the physical landscape does not become a problem for the pipelines. They can be laid under the water, they can be laid over the mountain, they can be laid over the surface of the plain, they can be laid anyway. Okay. These pipelines need only initial cost for laying them. Okay, they only need money. The people only need money at the beginning period for laying the pipes. Okay, and have almost negligible running or repair maintenance cost, and it has zero or very less cost involved for its maintenance. Okay. The pipelines reduce wastage and oil spills. It prevents or it reduces the wastage of gas, oil which is being transported through the pipelines. It also reduces transshipment losses and delays. If the oil, the crude oil, petroleum, if they are transported through other means of transport, then sometimes the trucks or the vehicles or the ship they drown, they meet with an accident, and then the oil spills or the company or the government loses the oil and gas, or the arrival or departure of the transportation delays. So that is prevented by the pipelines. Okay, and pipelines are also very easy to monitor. It is not so difficult to manage and monitor it. But there are problems of these pipelines. Okay, let's look at them. It's very costly, it's very expensive to lay the pipelines, although the cost is involved only at the beginning. Okay, beginning of laying the pipelines, but still that cost is very high. And it has danger of leakage, although it reduces spilling of oil and spilling of other materials which is being transported, but still it has danger of leakage. Leakage can take place. Okay. And if sometimes the pipelines, if it passes through another country, if it goes from India and Pakistan, that might create diplomatic problems, that might create problems between the two government bodies. Okay. And also pipelines can be sometimes used as a sabotage, or it can be misused by people if the pipelines go through some different countries or some different states. People can break the pipelines or steal the materials which are being transported to the pipelines, etc. Okay. And with the construction of pipeline, with the laying down of pipeline, that area cannot be used. Okay, if the pipelines are laid down in certain area, the ground, the surface of that area cannot be used, because if you dig, then you damage, or you are likely to damage or break the pipes. Okay, so you cannot use that land where the pipes have been laid, which is waterways, another mode of transport. Now, there are waterways which are called national waterways by the government. Okay, the waterways are basically use of water for transportation of goods and services or people, right? Like for example, how rivers can be crossed with the use of boats, right? So people and goods are transported from one side of the river to the other side with the use of boat, with the use of waterways as transport. Okay, so some rivers or some stretches of rivers have been declared in our country by the government as national waterways. Okay, why are these called national waterways and what are these national waterways? Let's look at some of the examples. The first one is National Waterways or NW number 1. Now this waterways is Ganga Bhagirathi Hooghly River System. The Ganga Bhagirathi Hooghly River System, which runs between Allahabad in Uttar Pradesh and Haldia in West Bengal. This waterways, this stretch of river is called National Waterways number 1. It covers Bihar and parts of Jharkhand also, apart from covering and connecting Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Okay, this waterways is 1,650 kilometers long. That's the length of the distance of this waterway. Okay, the second national waterway, number 2, is the Brahmaputra river system. Okay, this river system or the stretch of this national waterway is between Sadia and Dhubri in Assam. So this national waterways number 2 is located in Assam. Okay, and it is 891 kilometers long. The third national waterways is West Coast Kottapuram Koman, Udhog Mandal and Champakara canals in Kerala. So it is a canal which is in Kerala, that is National Waterways number 3. This canal is 205 kilometers long. Okay, so you see the waterways or modes of transport, the water as modes of transport can be rivers, they can be canals. Alright, so these rivers and canals help in transportation of goods and passengers or people from one place to another or one side to the other. Now there are other waterways as well apart from the national waterways number 1, 2, 3. Okay, they are rivers such as Godavari, Barak, Krishna, Sundarbans, Buckingham Canal, Brahmani, East-West Canal and the Damodar Valley Corporation canals. These canals also include in the waterways. Now let's look at inland waterways. Now this term inland waterways refer to the rivers and the canals that we just learned about. Okay, and why it's called inland is because this runs within the country. It does not go outside of the country, it's within the country. Okay, so these inland waterways are basically the rivers and the canals that we just learned about. Now these kind of waterways are oldest and cheapest in our country. Okay, and on these waterways we can use boats, rafts and canoes, and on these boats, rafts, canoes, people and the goods are transported from one place to another. Now in India, the total navigable inland waterways, that is 14,500 kilometer in length. So it is quite long. Out of these, almost half or a major portion of that length, which is 5,685 kilometer, are navigable by mechanized boats. Okay, by motorized boat. Now, what are the advantages of the waterways? Waterways provide the cheapest means of transport. Of all the transportation, of all the transport system, waterways is the cheapest. And it provides the best means of transport to carry bulky and heavy goods at lower cost. So, if you have huge goods that need to be transported, if you have heavy goods that needs to be moved from one place to another, but you don't have much money that you want to spend, then the waterways provides that service at lower cost. Waterways is also fuel efficient as well as environmentally friendly. Okay, it does not damage the environment so much. And almost all perennial rivers in our country can be used as important modes of transport almost throughout the year. Now, ports is also very important component of the waterways. Seaports. Okay, when we say ports, we mean seaports. Now, from the ports, trade with foreign countries are carried out. Okay, the trade which happens from our country with the other countries or the foreign countries that take place mostly through the seaports. There are 12 major seaports in our country and 187 minor seaports, okay, from where the trade to foreign countries take place. Now, 95% of the country's trade volume, which is 68% in terms of value, are being carried through seaports. So, you see, seaport plays a very important role in the economy and trade of our country because 95% of the trades of the country's total trade volume is carried out through the seaports. So here is the map of India and here you can see some of the major seaports. Okay, Kolkata, Haldia, Vishakhapatnam, Chennai, Kochi, Mumbai, Kandla, etc. These are important seaports from where export of goods take place to the foreign countries. Airways. Now, Airways provides the fastest means of transport. Okay, compared to all the means of transport, Airways is the fastest means of transport, but it is the costliest. You can reach a place fastest through aeroplanes, through Airways, but you have to pay lot of money. Okay, but it acts as a very important mode of transport during natural and man-made disasters. Okay, when there are landslides, floods, and other natural disasters of fire or any other commotion or riot, okay, fights between different groups of communities, then the airways provide a very crucial and important means of transport because the helicopters or planes can easily go to that area, pick up goods and people and transport them to other places. Okay, air transport is preferred mostly in the northeastern part of our country. Okay, let's see why. Apart from the other parts of our country, in the northeastern part, Airways is much more preferred mode of transport than compared to the other modes of transport. Let's see why. Now, the northeastern part of area is covered with dense forests. Okay, and these areas, the area is also prone to flood. Many flooding during years or every year takes place. Okay, and this area also has international frontiers, which sometimes causes problem in transportation of goods and people. Okay, that's why because of these problems, accessibility and movement of people and goods in the areas of the northeastern part of India becomes very difficult. Because of this reason, airways provide the best option for this area to have an access of transportation. Okay, but air travel is very expensive. We know that it is the fastest and it is easier when there are problems, but it is expensive. That is why special provisions have been introduced, okay, to provide those special provisions to the common people who live in the northeastern part of our country. Okay, because they need to have access to transportation. They need to transport goods and they also need to transport passengers. They also need to move from one place to another, but the only option they have is the airways, and that is expensive. As a result of this, the government and the other organizations have taken or introduced special provisions so that the people here can transport goods and also can transport people at reasonable prices. Now, at the time of independence, the air transport in our country was operated by private operators. It was not operated by the government. But in the year 1953, it was nationalized. Okay. But again, in 2007, Air India and Air Airlines were merged under one name, which is Air India Limited. And in May 2017, Air India became the third largest carrier in India, right after Indigo and Jet Airways. And in June 28th of the same year, the government of India announced the privatization of Air India. Earlier, it was controlled and managed and owned by the government, but in 2017, the government announced its privatization. Okay. Now, apart from airlines, there are helicopters. Now, these helicopters are used mainly in times when the people face immense difficulty, very difficult, when people find it extremely difficult to move from one place to another, to move their goods also. Okay, so helicopters are mostly used in difficult terrains or areas with difficult physical landscapes, and those are the states of Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and also most of the states in the northeastern part of our country. So here you can see in the map of our country some domestic airports and some major international airports. So you can see these are domestic airports, and this here is international airport. Okay. Communication. So until now we learned about transport and various means of transport. Now we look at communication. Now what is communication? Today if you look at your surroundings, if you look at yourself, if you pay attention, you're always communicating. You're trying to talk, you're trying to share, you're trying to listen, you're trying to accumulate knowledge, you're trying to disseminate knowledge, right? And there are mediums through which this is happening. So you use telephones, you use mobile phones to speak to one another, to share the message, to give the message, to circulate the message, right? You also have newspapers, you also have magazines, reading which you get aware of certain news, certain events. You also have television, you also have films, which gives you more information about certain topics, right? So these are all means of communication through which knowledge, through which information is shared, received, and distributed. Okay, so there are various means of communication. You can look around and you can name them. What are they? And these means of communication have been changing since the time they were discovered, since the time they were invented. Okay, the nature of it is changing. How we used to listen to news only through radios. Now you can listen to the news through television. You can listen to the news through your mobile phones. You can read the news on paper, newspaper, journal, etc., or maybe also a leaflet. Okay, so the means of communication keeps on changing. All right. This means of communication, the various means of communication can be divided into two main types. The first is communication, which is called personal communication, and the second one is called mass communication. So obviously the personal communication involves personal communication from one person to another person or between small group of people. But mass communication includes, the term itself indicates mass, it includes large number of people. Okay, so now let's look at some of the personal communication. Postal or written communication, which is also called mails. right? Mails, you write mails, you write letters, you send cards, birthday greeting cards. Those are called personal communication. The postal, the written, where you which you write and then you put in an envelope and you send it, that is called postal written communication. Okay. Now the mails in India, they're handled by the Indian Postal Service or the Indian Postal Network, the India Post. You have seen India Post offices or outlets in all the cities and districts and towns of our country, right? The India's postal network is the largest in the country. In our country, there are about 1.5 lakhs post offices, okay, which are located across our country. And out of this, 89%, majority of the post offices are located in the rural areas, in the countrysides, in the villages, okay. Now there are various kinds of mails which are sent. Some can be sent at easy pace. Some are very urgent. They need to be reached quickly. Okay. So the mails also have to be delivered quickly, or some are standard delivery, some are speed delivery. Okay. So the mails, the personal mails that we send, they are sorted accordingly, whether it should be delivered quickly or whether it can be delivered with whatever amount of time, standard amount of time. Okay. So as a result of this need, the Indian Postal Service or the Indian Postal Network, it introduced 6 mail channel system in big cities and towns. Let's look at them. The first one is called Rajdhani channel, second Metro channel, third Green channel, fourth Business channel, bulk mail channel, and last the periodical channel. Okay. Now apart from these, we know that every post offices or the postal network service providers, there are letter boxes, right? So in the letter boxes, you put or you insert your letter, document, parcel, etc. Okay. So these letter boxes are set up in such a way that you have to put the mail depending on how fast you want it delivered. If you have to do a speed delivery, then you have to go to the post office itself and not drop it at the letter boxes. If you want it to be delivered at standard time, then you drop the letter or document or parcel in the letter boxes. Okay, so depending on how fast you want your mail to be reached, you have to reach out to the mail boxes, letter boxes, or you have to go to the postal service counters, okay, the offices. So from the letter boxes, the mails are collected. Okay, the mails of business, bulk mail, periodical channels, they have to be booked at the concerned post office. So the mails of business, bulk mail, and periodical channels cannot be dropped into the letter boxes. For them to be sent, one has to go to the post office in the locality, present in the locality, in the town, in the city, and then have the mail sent. Okay, it cannot go through the letter boxes. Now apart from the postal services, there are also other services called courier services. These courier services, I'm sure you have heard of DHL, you have heard of all other private courier services, right? These also, like overnight express, etc. They also offer quick services. The mail that you send, the parcel that you send, they will be delivered quickly. Okay. Now, so those were mail services. Now, the second networks that we are going to look at is telecom network, telephonic networks. Okay, India has one of the largest telecom networks in Asia. Okay, and India is ranked 5th largest in the world when we consider the telecom networks. There are about 37,565 telephone exchanges distributed throughout the country. Okay, the telecommunication system, the system which deals with the telephone service in India, was thrown open to private companies in the 1990s. It was given to the private companies for its management, for its operation. Okay. The government, since then, the government and the private companies run local and long distance telephonic services that are provided to the people. Now there are a lot of competition in this also. Okay, in some telephonic services you have to pay a lot of money, but there are other telephonic services which are very in which the cost that you have to pay for the service is very less, right? So there is a competition between different service providers. So this competition has led to the prices, has caused the prices to fall down, to come down. Okay, so as a result of that, calls across India now are very cheap, right? You can call anywhere, your friend, your families who are located in any part of the country, right? Because it's very cheap. That is why the calls which are done, or the call services, the telephonic services provided in India is one of the cheapest in the world. Okay, in the similar manner, the landlines are also facing stiff competition because now everybody uses telephones. There was a time when every household, or most of the household who could afford, they used telephones. There was no mobile phones. But today everyone has a mobile phone of their own. They don't need landlines, they don't need telephone services, right? Because mobiles are much more easier. So this provides stiff competition to the landline services. Okay, our country has been able to cover more than 2/3 of the villages in India with subscriber trunk dialing telephone facility, or it is also known as STD facility. Okay, it is made possible because of the landline services. Okay, and this has been done in the villages, 2/3 of the villages. Okay, it has boosted uninterrupted communication between villages and towns, between buyers and sellers, and between consumers and producers. Okay, it has helped in the interchange of information from the grassroots, from the ground level to the higher authorities, and from the higher authorities at the top to the ground level. So that was telecom services or telecom networks. Now let's look at the third aspect of the communication. That is mass communication. Now mass communication deals with mass outreach. Okay, the outreach of this mode of communication is mass, wide outreach. Okay, so some of the modes or mediums of mass communication are television, radio, newspapers, magazines, books, even films. Okay, so through these mediums of mass communication, ideas, policies, national issues can be directly communicated to the people. By looking at the news in the television, you understand what is happening to the country. You know about what the government is doing. You know about what is happening to the poor, what is happening in the market, etc. Right? So all kinds of different issues, different ideas and information are provided to you through the mass media. Okay, it helps in creating awareness among the people. Through mass media, awareness is created among the people. Now Doordarshan is one of the channels, okay, broadcasting channel, which is owned by the government. It broadcasts many programs which range from educational to entertainment to sports, to various kinds of programs are broadcasted through this channel. Now today, apart from Doordarshan, there are a lot of other private channels which operate at various levels, okay, everywhere. And they provide various kinds of programs including the Doordarshan, okay. And these include also regional channels, so you get to learn about the regional areas as well. Another medium of mass communication in India is All India Radio, which is also called Akashvani. Okay, this is a mass medium which broadcasts program in national, regional and local languages for people of all regions and all age groups. In India, All India Radio has 20 radio stations and some 327 transmitters. So it has a large network. Recently, there has been introduction of FM or frequency modulation radio stations that have been operated by the private companies. Those are not government owned companies. Okay. Apart from these, there are periodicals and newspapers which are published in large numbers in different languages from various cities in our country. Okay, newspapers, written articles. From this, people get knowledge, from this, people get information, news, and become aware. These newspapers, periodical magazines are published in about 100 languages and dialects. The last medium of mass communication is film. India is a hub of commercial films in Asia, right? We produce a large number of films in a year. India produces short films, video feature films, and video short films. Okay. Central Board of Film Certification is the authority which certifies both Indian and foreign films. So all the films that are made, that are published before the audience, before we view them, they are certified by the Central Board of Film Certification. Okay, then only it is available for us to watch. Okay, so through the films also we learn about various things. We get aware of the social situations, the political condition, etc. All right.